Welcome, innovators and game changers, to Compete on Awesome with AI, your roadmap to harnessing AI power in your business journey. Imagine waking up tomorrow to find your industry completely transformed by AI. Exciting? Terrifying? Maybe both. But here's the thing, you don't have to navigate it alone. I'm Susan Frew, an entrepreneur and business owner just like you, and I'm here to be your tour guide through the world of practical, usable AI. Having built and scaled many businesses myself and saved $170,000 and counting from my budget for 2024, I know firsthand the challenges you're facing and the game-changing potential for AI that holds for all of us. In these episodes, you will join us as we explore AI tools you can implement today and boost your efficiency, how to stay ahead of the AI curve without breaking the bank. And we're not here to talk about science fiction fantasies. We're here for real, actionable strategies that you can use to compete and win in this AI-driven world today. So join us, whether you're a solopreneur working from the kitchen table or a CEO leading a team of hundreds. This is your guide to not just surviving, but thriving in the AI revolution. If you're ready to turn AI from a buzzword into your secret weapon, let's dive in and compete on awesome. Hello and welcome to Compete on Awesome with AI. My name is Susan Frew, your usable AI expert. And I'm so excited to be here today with Brett Schklar. And we are going to talk about everything AI. Welcome, Brett, to the show. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Susan. Glad to be here, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, so sort of the purpose and mission of our program is to give our listeners usable AI that they can use in their day-to-day life to save time, to increase their bottom line, all the things, right?
Yep.
And for me, usable AI, we AI'd our plumbing company from beginning to end, and we're able to save a significant amount of money so that we would be in a position to take the next chapter in our lives. And, like yourself, I also do some on-site consulting, and I have seen some really big numbers rolling in of
Yep.
what people are learning and using AI for. And I think it's just an exciting time to be alive and to be in the tech world. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up getting where you are today in AI, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I appreciate it. So let me start out by saying I am a recovering marketing puke. So I apologize in advance for those who are not super friendly to the concept or strategies of marketing. But I got into AI in a very roundabout way. I'm not a technologist, although I really do love and depend on technology. I got into AI from necessity. And let me explain. One of my big successes, I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur, which if you know serial entrepreneurs, it means that they have tried and failed a gazillion times before they find something that kind of clicks. And in 2005, I started a B2B marketing agency that seemed to click, grew it, scaled it, and eventually sold it in 2019. Timing was great, pre-pandemic. But when I grew and scaled my business, I had a pretty large team of a lot of employees and a lot of contractors. And one of the reasons why I sold my business was just my personal challenges with the ebbs and flows of an agency business, which everybody has, right? Mad Men shows the sexy side. It doesn't show the challenging
Yeah.
side of what agency life is. But I didn't like the ebbs and flows and the payroll, the large amounts of payroll that I had responsibility to make sure happened every week or every 2 weeks. So I sold the business, sort of took some time to figure out what I wanted to do. Really loved the idea of the world of fractional CMOs or fractional chief marketing officers. So in around the end of 2020, I decided to, hang up a shingle and say that I was going to create a company focused on being a fractional CMO for all kinds of B2B companies. And but I didn't want to start all over with adding employees and staffing up, especially because it was remote and I just didn't know if I had that skill set to do it. So I wound up trying to find ways to leverage, unfair and competitive advantages that I could do in my fractional CMO business to grow it and scale it. And I was floundering until November of 2022 when we all got the gateway drug known as Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Then for the first time, AI went from being something out there that scientists, engineers, and mega nerds were able to do to now AI is just right in our fingertips. So I decided I was going to use it to grow and scale my business. So I built a company called Grow, team of fractional CMOs. We've got about 30 fractional CMOs who are all contractors. I have three virtual assistants that do everything from marketing, sales, and operations, but I don't have any employees. And I'm really happy about that. And I got to that point and I got to where I'm feeling good about scaling because I deployed AI in every aspect of my business. And it taught me not only how to do that for myself, but as I was sharing this with other people, they were like, well, can you come and talk to my group about what you did and how you did it? And can you like put together a booklet? And next thing you know is I've started to get involved with the Vistage community and presenting to groups on a very regular basis, as well as running a lot of workshops to help people figure out AI. And so I say, beware of AI. It will completely transform your business.
Hmm.
And I talk to a lot of technology first type companies. So operation companies, professional services companies, um, a lot of middle market companies to help them figure out their AI roadmap.
That's awesome. So, I have my favorite AIs, that also save me a lot of time and money and expertise. And it's a constant
Yep.
uphill learning
Yep.
curve, right? Someone
Yep.
asked me, they're like, "How do you keep up on all this stuff?" I'm like, "Well, I probably listen and study like 6 to 10 hours a week, and some weeks it's more, and some weeks it's less. But unless you do that." You're not going to keep up on it. And even
Right.
people who I follow that are really in the thick of it, they are also going along with the same story, right? Like it's like, how do you keep up? And then we follow Ethan Mollick on Twitter. I don't. Do you follow him?
Yep. Yep.
Professor Ethan Mollick. I swear the guy's a vampire. And I also think it would be a good drinking game. Like every time Ethan Mollick tweets, we get to drink. Like all he was going all night long last night. Like it was just like nonstop. And I know he's on the East Coast, and I'm like, dude, like get some rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do believe that it is a constant effort to do it. And people like ourselves, we have to be the tour guides and the synthesizers of the information because otherwise it's way too
Yep.
overwhelming.
Yep.
So what are some of your favorites that you use yourself and you share with others?
Yeah, I'll tell you that there's obviously, 14.2 trillion gazillion, apps that are out there and every day there's like 50 or 80 new ones and on Facebook it's just, blows up with AI tools or project management and this and that. But one of them actually caught my attention that talked about how it saves, between 30 minutes and an hour every day. And it replaces chaos of email with organization. And the tool is called Fixer, Fyxer.ai. And I'm not a paid endorser. I don't have any affiliate links. Like, I ain't got none of that. I just happen to find that it saves me 30 to 45 minutes a day. And let me explain
Beautiful.
why. So it is a tool that reads your email, it looks at your calendar, and it takes the two of those things and helps you be a better person. So before Fixer, I would get into my email. There's some that are focused and unfocused, the way they categorize, but I would have to look at emails and I'd respond to emails and have to sift through things. Well, this thing does a couple of things. First of all, it categorizes all of my emails into a couple of different categories so I don't have to think about it when I wake up or when I get my day going. But the most important thing it does is it finds these emails that need a response and it creates a draft of a response, and it's good. I mean,
Hey,
like,
I'm going to screen share because
scary.
I'm looking at the free
Yep,
trial, the 7-day trial here. So
yep,
look
yep,
at this is what he's talking about,
yep.
folks. To respond.
So so yeah, and that's the top part. It can categorize your emails, and I've got about 7 different email accounts, and so I have it working across all of them. It also can join your meetings. So very similar to like Otter.ai or Read.ai or some of those tools, but it uses all that information to help reply to emails. So instead of me thinking about a response to an email every morning that I see and figuring out which ones need responding to, it decides what needs responding. It drafts the email. And I'll tell you, it's about 80%, right? Like there's only about 20% of like work I have to do to manipulate those emails. And so for me, and the way my brain works is I always have a fear of like, am I going to respond in the right way? Am I going to respond with the right information? And this just takes that fear out of it. Then, when I have extra time later in the day or I'm not super busy, I go to those other emails that are already categorized and then I go through them, and it takes me very little time to go through them. It has reorganized my life in a way that I just, you know, can't find anything that has been that efficient and that great in giving me time back in my life when it comes to AI. The only thing that would be better is if it were to do my dishes and do my laundry. Uh, then we're talking about real game changer as far as saving time. But this does a really damn good job of that.
When I travel around the country speaking to different audiences, that's always their biggest beef, the email. And it's almost to the point, email overload, to the point where sometimes you don't even want to take a vacation because you know the nightmare that you're going to have when you come back of emails. So then you end up working on your vacation, which then isn't a real vacation. So you
Yeah.
either can work during the whole time and forget about your friends and family, or you can come back to the big mess. And it's
Yep.
just kind of unfair, and that's why so many of us are stressed out, I think, because we
Yep.
don't have
Yep.
all of this locked in, right?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So, so when you were working with clients, so here's my process. I want to kind of just go through this for the people listening. So if you're thinking about, that you really need to introduce AI into your company, I mean, I think that there's definitely steps that we need to follow. And one of the biggest ones is the evaluation portion. Do you agree, Brett? Like you need to understand what each department does
Yeah.
before you can dive in there and start fixing, right? So don't start taking AI and slapping it into your company, because you're going to be very disappointed. You're not going to get the results, and you're going to waste a ton of time and money, as opposed to, like I say, go old school before you go new school. And you
Yep.
really
Yep.
need to map out your processes and procedures now, and then find the areas that are broken, and then let's put some AI on there. So
Yeah.
what does your process look like?
Yeah. I think you and I are a lot alike in a lot of different tracks of things. The thing that I talk to a lot of non-tech companies, and I think you do as well. And
Uh-huh. Manufacturing.
there is a uh, psychological resistance and fear of AI that most people actually have. FOAI, right? Fear of AI. Now, it's come from places like Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminator. We've all watched The Matrix,
Yeah.
that we're all just batteries. We've watched Her, the movie, which is a little creepy, and how you can get a little too much romantically involved in your AI. Space Odyssey 2001, right? Hal just decides to that humans aren't quite as necessary as we all thought. So we have this fear of AI that we need to understand and embrace. And I think that's the subconscious, the primal brain still has that fear of AI. The second fear is employees not knowing if it's good or bad to be using AI in their job. And so the biggest thing that I see is that, and when I talk to the CEOs, there's one perspective. When I go in and I work with some of the people within a company, I get a very different perspective. They're
Mhm.
scared to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I just saved a couple hours of my day. Um, is that good, or is that bad?" Right? And so the big thing for me And I do agree with, putting the process in place and figuring out those pain spots. But the biggest thing for me is to help CEOs figure out how to set the tone
Mm.
on what AI does for their organization. From that, the next thing, to your point, Susan, is I I go to people and I say, find the things that just suck to do, that you
Yeah, that
just
they hate doing.
hate
Get
to
rid of
do.
it.
And let's start out by making things suck less,
Yeah.
right?
AI, that bad boy, right? Like, you're like, I'm gonna AI
Right.
this stuff. I hate
Yeah.
doing this. It takes me away from my genius. It takes me away from what I'm really great at.
Yeah.
Get rid of the minutia.
Yeah. So I call it AIify your pain butt, right? And that's sort of a great way for people to really dip their toes in, get dirty with it, and have a little bit of fun solving the problems that are just people's pain in the butt.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you just said. And I'll tell you, so one of the ways with my process is I will then meet with each department in the organization. And I have this one really large organization that I'm working with, and this one group just like was never getting their assignments done. They just were not engaging. I'm like, what is going on here? And so I asked someone else from my coaching bench to sit in on the meeting, and they were like, we decided afterwards they're afraid to losing their job, so they don't
Yeah.
want to engage. But in reality, it's this: if you hold your company back from taking that next step with AI, and your competitor across the street is going full board, you're going
Yeah.
to have a problem with your job anyway, because your company is going to be struggling that you work for. So it's really counterintuitive to what you think's going to happen than what's going to happen. And my message to anyone is you need to reskill. You need to
Yeah.
retool. You cannot sit on your back and say, oh, I don't get that, or I'm not a computer person, or people are still saying that. Like 40 years after the personal computer came out, they're like, oh, I'm not really much of a computer person. Oh, really? Because the person who's standing in line waiting for your job is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interesting, so there's a couple of concepts there. First of all, I think that IT is where AI initiatives go to die. Um,
Agreed. Yes.
and that's the
Sorry,
first.
sorry, IT departments everywhere. You are not always the best person.
And I just ran into this. We were launching an AI initiative with a new company.
Hmm.
The person that's the head of IT, personal friend with the CEO, very close. And even after I said, and it look, I'm not AI does an amazing job, but a big part of sorry, IT does an amazing job. A big part of IT is risk mitigation. The
Hmm.
only person that can figure out the risk reward ratio for a company is a CEO, a president, an owner, something like that. They are the only ones that really truly have the ability to decide how much risk to take because this is risky. It is. We don't
Hmm.
know, like go back to Fixer, the email magical tool. I'm still not sure what it does with all my information. The end user license agreement was
Yeah.
250 pages long. I had to
Hmm.
scroll, baby, scroll, to get to the end to click accept. And yes, it's saving me 30 to 45 minutes a day. And yes, I pay for it, but there might be a cost to that, that I'm not aware of. And that's something I just have to live with. IT doesn't have that risk management. They're in the risk mitigation, not
Hmm.
risk management. And so
Got
because of that, it causes a challenge. But back to your, so I wanted to sort of put that in because we always get, and I'm sure you get it too, is like, hey, we've got an AI person coming to talk to us. Should we bring our IT person? I'm like, sure, if you want it to die, right?
it.
So, back to, the conversation about, actually, I forgot what your question was, Susan. I apologize. I was having so
Uh,
much fun there.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about when you go on site and the things that the biggest problems and what have you.
Yeah.
And there are people that are resistant to this change. But here's the thing: you do not want to be selling candles while your competitor across the street is selling light bulbs, because you are going to lose. This is not something that you can rest your laurels on.
Yeah.
And I've seen like AI data scientists say this, and I believe it because more than one person has said it, where they say, the advancement that AI is going to make in the next 10 years is equal to where we have been in the last 100
Yeah.
years. And it's doing amazing things, like everything on the medical front, and efficiencies and growth and marketing, like the whole 9 yards. However, on the other side of that, there is going to be a massive shakeup in our current workforce as we know it. And you must address it. You must. And humans are not going out of style. However, our work's going to be different. We're not going to do minutia work. We're going to do really important things that we love doing and add value to our employer and to our communities. But you sitting there answering emails for 3 or 4 hours a day doesn't really help anyone. But that's why people really need to get on board.
Well, we're still in the phase where, and I'm sure you've probably shared this as well, is that we're at the current phase where, in most cases, not every, but in most cases, and I'll talk about the exception, in most cases, AI is not replacing jobs yet. But the people who understand how to use AI are much more valuable to a company than the ones who don't or have a resistance to it. The exception, though, is that for the first time in 40 years, there is a reduction in the number of job openings for software engineers.
Mhm.
Typically, the junior software engineers who are shortly out of school, they cut their teeth on, software development and software engineering by doing a lot of the grunt work and doing a lot of the basic coding skills work. Now that AI can do that, and it does it 10 times better than any human with a lot more accuracy, so therefore QA cycles, quality assurance cycles are reduced. They are replacing entry level sales, or sorry, not sales, software engineers and software developers at a pace I haven't seen before. So for the first time in 40 years, there's that reduction. Now, back to the point where, people who know how to use AI are going to be a lot more valuable than those who aren't. There's also another element to it, which I call Generation AI or Gen AI. And it is that there is a sea of people coming out of schools, maybe not even colleges, coming out of high schools, and they are thinking generative AI first. They aren't searching on Google. They aren't searching on Instagram like they used to. They're searching ChatGPT first, or Perplexity first. And because of that, they are able to do something that none of us have been able to do that are Gen X like myself or even millennials. And that is they know how to ask the right question in the right way to the right tool. And because of that, they're going to be able to uncover answers that nobody else in a company has been able to do. So one of my things to tell people to do is start looking for Generation AI employees and hire them before your competitors do.
Mhm.
Even if you don't have a roadmap in place, even if you're not ready, even if you haven't set the tone, even if you don't have a job description, start finding out whose kids are kicking butt with generative AI, and then bring them on as paid interns, and they are going to move mountains for you. Data analysis, automating customer service, finding great opportunities within sales optimization, all those things they'll be able to do.
Now, I just heard that there is a new application that is happening, making Zapier, if you will, easier to use
Yep.
with OpenAI. So there's going to be a new bridge. So those of you who don't know how to write code, like myself, and will never need to write code because I just don't, because I can write code if I give the right prompt to ChatGPT. That's how I can write code, and it works the same way. And if you were thinking about sending your kids to school for coding, pull the plug, because that's not what's happening. They need to be learning, more advanced skills than that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and I love Zapier, and I love that that's taking a very AI first approach there as well. One of the funny things is I've learned that, everybody's in a different place with their AI adoption, but most of us are still in the world where we feel like generative AI is a middle school diorama project. We are cutting, copying, and pasting everything to go from one app to the next app. We do a
Yeah.
bunch of work in
Yep.
ChatGPT, then we throw it into Gamma, the magical,
I
presentation
love Gamma.
building tool. and then we have to take it out of there and put it into Canva to do some of the finishing touches. And, people are using ChatGPT. They say it's really cool, but I can't do anything with it. I have to copy paste. And then I spend more time reformatting it than I do actually using the
Mhm.
information. So I call it, we're in the middle school science fair project part of generative AI.
Mhm.
And the copy and pasting, it will be over soon, and there will be a lot
Yeah.
more APIs. Zapier is obviously a leader in connecting a lot of those things, and I think there's a lot that it does. But that's the frustration I hear from people, is that cut, copy, paste, and then reformatting takes just as much time as building things. So it can't come fast enough.
Well, the thing is this, AI is like riding your bicycle up a really long hill, right? So you're going to have to put a lot of effort in this. It's front loaded. But
Yeah.
then once you get it and you see it start working, it's going to be a lot easier to like start plugging it into other places. And a lot of people are not using all the features. So, for example, I have a manufacturing client. They've been in business for 75 years. They have manufacturing plant, and we use the visual AI in the plant
Hmm.
to help us to understand the workflow process and where things are stuck. And it was just genius. And,
Yeah.
and up until a few months ago, we couldn't do that.
Yep.
And things that we're learning all the time, the deep research. I had a client working on a project, and they were researching all of these tools for this one project. I'm like, I think you should put all this information into deep research and see what you come back with. Bam, like in 2 minutes, which is a long, right? Because deep research is really researching. They came back with all of these new ideas that they didn't think of and they didn't find in their own research. So, I mean, it's genius tools like that we need to be getting on board with. And that's where you and I commit, because we're
Yep.
going to like share with our clients, like, here's the 5 things, but those 5 things could change in a month.
Yeah.
And I jokingly say I'm starting a 12-step program for subscriptions.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So what do you think this next year is going to look like? We are now sitting here on May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Uh, Tell me what you think is going to happen this next year. What's your prediction?
Yeah, and keep in mind, my lens is I work with corporations, so I think about it from the CEO and leadership perspective, and
Mhm.
those types of things, not necessarily on the how to make it more productive in your life on a day-to-day basis personally. Um, Here's what's going on. You know this better than I do, probably, is that we are in this agentic area of AI where we have these AI
Agents
agents, and we
coming.
sound super important because we use the word agentic,
Mhm.
which is the plural of agent, apparently. Uh, but companies aren't ready for it. Now, there's a couple of AI agents like HR support, building a chat bot within Copilot that's very effective. There's onboarding for new employees. There's certain things that are good that are using agents, but I think we're as a business society not quite ready for what, for the most part, what agents are going to do for us or do to us. I don't think, we're going to have a lot of people going into N8N or any of those agent building collaboration tools just yet. Maybe a little bit playing around. But I think that 2025, what it needs is to be prepared for the next 12 to 18 months.
Mhm.
My guidance to my clients and the work we do is more about training and setting the tone or setting the expectations that you might not be getting a lot out of it just yet. But the more you put into it, come 2026, come 2027, if you have trained your model, and I also talk about how to build a playground and use, one tool for a playground and use another tool for production. And I've got a bunch of different examples of how to do that. But the feeling is that we need to be preparing ourselves to really, leverage the living daylights out of these tools over the next 12 to 18 months. So right now it's training. It's having it join your, your Zoom calls, your Teams calls. It's having it get access to the information and making sure you've got the rights and permissions and privileges and all that stuff in place, which is where IT gets involved. And really working on that, because when we start getting our hands around agents, when we start doing all those magical connecting things with APIs, the more trained your AI model, your primary AI model you use, the better off you are to how you can pivot, move, and scale so damn fast. So that's what I am telling people what 2025 should look like for them.
And I agree with you. For those of you listening out here and you haven't taken the, the big deep dive yet, you need to start dipping your toe in there. You need to start playing with AI, having it be usable for you, delegating all the things you don't like doing. And what you can do right now, you can take a sheet of paper, old school, put it next to your desk for the next week and start jotting down all the things that you hate doing and that take you a ridiculously long amount of time. And then trying to find the AI that goes in there. So, well, Brett, it has been great meeting with you. I'm so excited to get to spend this time, hear more about what you do and who your ideal clients are. But, while we have the platform here, tell us how we can reach you and who's a good connection for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Susan. First of all, really appreciate you having me on here. I think you and I have the sort of the person that I think is helping you out. Julie is amazing. So I'm so glad that she connected us. So shout out to Julie. Um, so my talk is Beware of AI. It will completely transform your business. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Brett Schklar, Schklar. There's not many of them out there, so it's a pretty easy find. And then you can also go to aifirstleadership.com and find me, or reach out at brett@aifirstleadership.com. So those are the ways.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on Compete on Awesome with AI, and the podcast that teaches you how to use AI on a daily basis. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, everybody.